Ugh.
Just keep smiling. No poking. Oh, sorry. Welcome back. Sorry. How are you doing today? We will be telling a story called Ben Herb. Ben Hare.
Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur.
We haven't actually met Ben-Hur yet, but
Yeah,
we're going to read his story anyway.
I fell asleep.
I just got punched in the face.
No.
That's what I get for trying to tickle the little man. Ah, 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 ah. Okay.
Merry Christmas!
It's not Christmas.
I know it's not Christmas, but still.
Okay.
We will be reading the Bible, then we are going to be doing the synopsis today, so yay! And then we will be doing Ben-Hur. Then we will be doing
Saying goodbye.
Then we will be doing If I'm Still Awake. I might be able to do a joke.
Do you have a joke now? All right, so we're going to continue with Judges. First off, we're on Judges chapter 3. So this is the English Standard Version. I don't think I've said that in the last couple of days, but here it is, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them. That is, all in Israel who had not experienced all the wars in Canaan. It was only in order that the generations of the people of Israel might know war, to teach war to those who had not known it before. These are the nations: the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon as far as Lebo Hamath. They were for the testing of Israel, to know whether Israel would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. So the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods. Not a good idea. And the people of Israel did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asheroth. Therefore, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the people of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years. But when the people of Israel cried out to the Lord raised up a deliverer for the people of Israel, who saved them, Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he judged Israel. He went out to war, and the Lord gave Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and his hand prevailed over Cushan Rishathaim. So the land had rest 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. So there was a really interesting video that I shared a couple of nights ago on the book of Judges. And if you have not watched it, I highly recommend it. I'm going to keep going. This is still in chapter 3. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done what was evil in the sight of the Lord. He gathered to himself the Ammonites and the Amalekites and went and defeated Israel. And they took possession of the city of palms. And the people of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. Then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up for them a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjaminite, a left-handed man. The people of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon, the king of Moab, and Ehud made for himself a sword with two edges, a cubit in length, and he bound it on his right thigh under his clothes, and he presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now Eglon was a very fat man, and when Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute, but he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal and said, I have a secret message for you, O king. And he commanded silence, and all his attendants went out from his presence. And Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. And he arose from his seat, and Ehud reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into that's Eglon's, belly. And the hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not pull the sword out of his belly, and the dung came out. Then Ehud went out into the porch and closed the doors of the roof chamber behind him and locked them. When he had gone, the servants came, and when they saw that the doors of the roof chamber were locked, they thought, surely he is relieving himself in the closet of the cool chamber. And they waited till they were embarrassed. But when he still did not open the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key and opened them, and there lay their Lord dead on the floor. Ehud escaped while they delayed, and he passed beyond the idols and escaped to Sariah. When he arrived, he sounded the trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim. Then the people of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he was their leader. And he said to them, follow after me, for the Lord has given your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. So they went down after him and seized the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and did not allow anyone to pass over. And they killed at that time about 10,000 of the Moabites, all strong, able-bodied men. Not a man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest for 80 years. After him was Shamgar the son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. That is the end of chapter 3, and tomorrow we will begin the story of Deborah. So, all righty. So, yesterday we started this story, Ben-Hur, one of my favorite books of all time. And I did a little bit of research. Lew Wallace, who was the author of Ben-Hur, and I'm not by any means any kind of expert on who he was or what he meant, but he was an American. He fought for the Union Army in the Civil War alongside General Grant, and he was actually a major general in the Union Army during the Civil War. And the reason why I first started doing this research was because I was wondering which came first, the song We Three Kings or the book Ben-Hur, which obviously is beginning off with the three kings and their visit to Bethlehem. And I found out that the song was written in 1857 and the book was written, or at least published, in 1880. So that makes the book, of course, in 1857, Lew Wallace was busy being a general in the American Army, but by 1887, he was actually the governor of the territory of New Mexico. So I thought that was also interesting. And after he was the governor of the territory of New Mexico, he became, I think it was the ambassador or something to the Ottoman Empire. So very interesting character. If you have any time, he actually wrote an autobiography, which is longer than this book, if you can believe it. So if you're interested in reading that sort of thing, then you can do that on your own. I won't do that. Where is that video? I posted the video on the Heavy D storytelling page, so it should be there. If it's not, I will send it to you in a special message. It's actually a two-part video. Both of them are about 45 minutes in length, and it is worth an hour and a half of your time. I promise you, it's very, very, very good. Of course, it's YouTube, and I usually listen to YouTube on 1.25 speed, which you can also do, and it only took me about an hour and 10. So at this time, Kimberly is going to come and give us a synopsis of what we talked about yesterday. Here is Kimberly.
So in the last chapters, the last three chapters, they
Not
met
a whole
up.
lot happened.
Yeah, they met up. They figured out that even though they spoke in languages that the others had never heard before, they can all understand each other. And then one of them told how they came over.
How many of them?
3.
Which one of them told his story?
I forget.
Was he from?
I think.
Was he from England?
No, that's not a thing yet.
Okay. Was he from Gaul? He could have been from Gaul.
I don't know what that is.
I know what he was
Gaul
from.
is the
I know what he was
Roman
from.
country of France.
I know what he was from. He was from Paris.
No.
No, actually, he was from Greece.
Right.
So he was Greek.
And for those of you wondering, I watch my videos in 2 times speed, not 1.5.
I said 1.5.
Eh.
Okay, so that's about all that happened. But there's a lot of really, really eloquent, descriptive storytelling that's going on. Of course, he's riding a dromedary camel, and he dismounts his camel, and he talks to his camel. He does a little bit. Well, then he's talking to himself. Where was it? He said, at last, at last. They will come. He that led me is leading them. I will make ready. We are far from home, a racer with the swiftest winds. We are far from home, but God is with us. That sounds like he's talking to his camel. All right, so chapter 4. This one is called Speech of the Hindoo. Of course, that guy was the Greek dude, and this is the Indian dude, also known as the Hindoo. I don't think Hinduism was a thing at this time, but I'm not actually sure about the history of Hinduism, so more to follow on that. All right, so chapter 4. The Egyptian and the Hindu looked at each other. The former waved his hand, the latter bowed and began. Our brother has spoken well. May my words be as wise. He broke off, reflected a moment, then resumed. You may know me, brethren, by the name of Melchior. I speak to you in the language which, if not the oldest in the world, was at least the soonest to be reduced to letters. I mean the Sanskrit of India. I am a Hindu by birth. My people were the first to walk in the fields of knowledge, first to divide them, first to make them beautiful. Whatever may hereafter befall, the 4 Vedas must live, for they are the primal fountains of religion and useful intelligence. From them were derived the Upavedas, which, delivered by Brahma, treat of medicine, archery, architecture, music, and the 64 mechanical arts, the Vedangas, revealed by inspired saints and devoted to astronomy, grammar, prosody, pronunciation, charms and incantations, religious rites and ceremonies. The Upangas, written by the sage Vyasa and given to cosmogony, chronology, and geography. Therein also are the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, heroic poems designed for the perpetuation of our gods and demigods. Such, O brethren, are the great Shastras, or books of sacred ordinances. They are dead to me now, yet through all time they will serve to illustrate the budding genius of my race. They were promises of quick perfection. Ask you why the promises failed? Alas, the books themselves closed all the gates of progress. Under pretext of care for the creature, their authors imposed the fatal principle that a man must not address himself or to discovery or invention, as heaven had provided him all things needful. When that condition became a sacred law, the lamp of Hindoo genius was let down a well where ever since it has lighted narrow walls and bitter waters. Hi, Rebecca. These allusions, brethren, are not from pride, as you will understand when I tell you that the Shastras teach a supreme god called Brahman, also that the Puranas, or sacred poems of the Upangas, tell us of a virtue and good works, and of the soul. So, if my brother will permit the saying, the speaker bowed deferentially to the Greek, ages before his people were known, the two great ideas, God and the soul, had absorbed all the forces of the Hindu mind. In further explanation, let me say that Brahman is taught by the same sacred books as a triad, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Of these, Brahma is said to have been the author of our race, which in course of creation he divided into four castes. First, he peopled the worlds below and the heavens above. Next, he made the earth ready for terrestrial spirits. Then, from his mouth proceeded the Brahmin caste, nearest in likeness to himself, highest and noblest, sole teacher of the Vedas, which at the same time flowed from his lips in finished state, perfect in all useful knowledge. From his arms next issued the Kshatriya, or warriors. From his breast, the seat of life, came the Vaisya, or producers, shepherds, farmers, merchants. From his foot, in sign of degradation, sprang the Sudra, or serviles, doomed to menial duties for the other classes, serfs, domestics, laborers, artisans. Take notice further that the law so born with them forbade a man of one caste becoming a member of another. The Brahmin could not enter a lower order. If he violated the laws of his own grade, he became an outcast, lost to all but outcasts like himself. At this point, the imagination of the Greek, flashing forward upon all the consequences of such a degradation, overcame his eager attention, and he exclaimed, "In such a state, O brethren, what mighty need of a loving God!" "Yes," added the Egyptian, "of a loving God like ours." The brows of the Hindoo knit painfully. When the emotion was spent, he proceeded in a softened voice. "I was born a Brahmin. My life, consequently, was ordered down to its least act, its last hour. My first draught of nourishment, the giving me my compound name, taking me out the first time to see the sun, investing me with the triple thread by which I became one of the twice born, my induction into the first order, were all celebrated with sacred texts and rigid ceremonies. I might not walk, eat, drink, or sleep without danger of violating a rule. And the penalty, O brethren, the penalty was to my soul. According to the degrees of omission, my soul went to one of the heavens, Indra's, the lowest, Brahmas, the highest, or it was driven back to become the life of a worm, a fly, a fish, or a brute. The reward for perfect observance was beatitude or absorption into the being of Brahm, which was not existence as much as absolute rest. The Hindu gave himself a moment's thought. Proceeding, he said, the part of a Brahmin's life called the first order in his student life. When I was ready to enter the second order, that is to say, when I was ready to marry and become a householder, I questioned everything, even Brahm. I was a heretic. From the depths of the well, I had discovered a light above and yearned to go up and see what all it shone upon. At last, with what years of toil I stood in the perfect day, and behold the principle of life, the element of religion, the link between the soul and God, love. The shrunken face of the good man kindled visibly, and he clasped his hands with force. A silence ensued, during which the others looked at him. The Greek through tears. At length he resumed. The happiness of love is in action. Its test is what one is willing to do for others. I could not rest. Brahm had filled the world with so much wretchedness. The Sudra appealed to me. So did the countless devotees and victims. The island of Gangalagore lies where the sacred waters of the Ganges disappear in the Indian Ocean. Thither I betook myself in the shade of the temple built there to the sage Kapila, in a union of prayers with the disciples whom the sanctified memory of the holy man keeps around his house. I thought to find rest, but twice every year came pilgrimages of Hindus seeking the purification of the waters. Their misery strengthened my love. Against its impulse to speak, I clenched my jaws, for one word against Brahm or the triad of or the Shastras would doom me. One act of kindness to the outcast Brahmins who now and then dragged themselves to die on the burning sands, a blessing said, a cup of water given, and I became one of them, lost to family, country, privileges, caste. The love conquered. I spoke to the disciples in the temple. They drove me out. I spoke to the pilgrims. They stoned me from the island. On the highways I attempted to preach. My hearers fled from me or sought my life. In all India, finally, there was not a place in which I could find peace or safety. Not even among the outcasts, for though fallen, they were still believers in Brahman. In my extremity, I looked for a solitude in which to hide from all but God. I followed the Ganges to its source, far up in the Himalayas. When I entered the pass at Hurdwar, where the river in unstained purity leaps to its course through the muddy lowlands, I prayed for my race and thought myself lost to them forever. Through gorges, over cliffs, across glaciers, by peaks that seemed star high, I made my way up to the Long Sao, a lake of marvelous beauty, asleep at the feet of the sea Gangri, the Gurla, and the Kailas Parbat, giants which flaunt their crowns of snow everlastingly in the face of the sun. Those are three mountains, by the way. Um, Giant mountains. Probably one of them is Everest. I don't know that for sure. There in the center of the earth, where the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra rise to run their different courses, that's three rivers, where mankind took up their first abode and separated to replete the world, leaving Balkh, the mother of cities, to attest the great fact where nature, gone back to its primeval condition and secure in its immensities, invites the sage and the exile with promise of safety to the one and solitude to the other. There I went to abide alone with God, praying, fasting, waiting for death. Again the voice fell, and the bony hands met in a fervent clasp. One night I walked by the shores of the lake and spoke to the listening silence. When will God come and claim his own? Is there to be no redemption? Suddenly a light began to glow tremulously out on the water. Soon a star arose and moved towards me and stood overhead. The brightness stunned me. While I lay upon the ground, I heard a voice of infinite sweetness say, Thy love hath conquered. Blessed art thou, O Son of India. The redemption is at hand. With two others, from far quarters of the earth, thou shalt see the Redeemer, and be a witness that he hath come. In the morning arise and go meet them, and put all thy trust in the Spirit which shall guide thee. And from that time the light has stayed with me, so I knew it was the visible presence of the Spirit. In the morning I started to the world by the way I had come. In a cleft of the mountain I found a stone of vast worth, which I sold in Hurdwar. By Lahore and Kabul, and yet I came to Ispahan. There I bought the camel, and thence was led to Baghdad, not waiting for caravans. Alone I traveled, fearless, for the Spirit was with me and is with me yet. What glory is ours, O brethren? We are to see the Redeemer, to speak to him, to worship him. I am done. Chapter 5 is the Egyptian story, Good Works. I do want to interject here very quickly and just say that these two stories are the same in that the traditions of their old ancestral lands where they came from, the first one from Greece, the second one from India, they don't, they just, they've explored everything they can in those traditions, and they realize that there's something missing. And so in their earnestness and their fasting and their prayer, they hear this voice from the Spirit of God, and that is what has called them to seek the Redeemer that they are going to seek. And I think both times it says Redeemer, and it is capitalized. It doesn't say Redeemer the first time, but anyway. So the point is that they rejected the traditions of their ancestral lands, and now they're going to see what is real, so to speak. All right, so the Egyptian, that was the first one that showed up in the very beginning of the book. The vivacious Greek broke forth in expressions of joy and congratulations, after which the Egyptian said with characteristic gravity, I salute you, my brother. You have suffered much, and I rejoice in your triumph. If you are both pleased to hear me, I will now tell you who I am, and how I came to be called. Wait for me a moment. He went out and tended the camels. Coming back, he resumed his seat. Your words, brethren, were of the Spirit, he said in commencement, and the Spirit gives me to understand them. You each spoke particularly of your own countries, in that there was a great object which I will explain, but to make the interpretation complete, let me first speak of myself and my people. I am Balthasar the Egyptian. The last words were spoken quietly, but with so much dignity that both listeners bowed to the speaker. There are many distinctions I might claim for my race, he continued, but I will content myself with one. History began with us. We were the first to perpetuate events by records kept. So we have no traditions, and instead of poetry, we offer you certainty. On the facades of palaces and temples, on obelisks, on the inner walls of tombs, we wrote the names of our kings and what they did, and to the delicate Capri we entrusted the wisdom of our philosophers and the secrets of our religion, all the secrets but one, whereof I will presently speak, older than the Vedas of Parabrahm, or the Upangas of Vyasa, O Melchior, older than the songs of Homer, or the metaphysics of Plato, O my Gaspar, older than the sacred books or kings of the people of China, or those of Siddhartha, son of the beautiful Maya, older than the Genesis of Moshe the Hebrew, oldest of human records are the writings of Menes, our first king. Pausing an instant, he fixed his large eyes kindly upon the Greek, saying, in the youth of Hellas, who, O Gaspar, were the teachers of her teachers. The Greek bowed, smiling. By those records, Balthazar continued, we know that when the fathers came from the far east, from the region of the birth of the three sacred rivers, from the center of the earth, the old Iran, of which you spoke, O Melchior, came bringing with them the history of the world before the flood, and of the flood itself, as given to the Aryans by the sons of Noah. They taught God, the Creator, and the beginning, and the soul, deathless as God. When the duty which calls us now is happily done, if you choose to go with me, I will show you the sacred library of our priesthood, among others, the Book of the Dead, in which is the ritual to be observed by the soul after death has dispatched it on its journey to judgment. The ideas, God and the immortal soul, were born to Mizraim over the desert, and by him to the banks of the Nile. Mizraim, by the way, is in the Bible. I believe it's Genesis chapter 8 when they're talking about the sons of Noah, and it's and I think that he's the grandson of Noah. I know he's the grandson of Noah. I think he's the son of Cush. I could be mistaken on exactly. If you want to, I think I'm pretty sure it's chapter 8. It might be chapter 9. They were then in the purity easy of understanding, as what God intends for our happiness always is. So also was the first worship, a song and a prayer natural to a soul joyous, hopeful, and in love with its maker. By the way, another comment. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I'm having some ADD right now. But some translations don't some translations of that passage in Genesis, they don't call him Mizraim, they call him Egypt. So literally the father of Egypt is the grandson of Noah. There it is. All right, okay. Here the Greek threw up his hands, exclaiming, "Oh, the light deepens within me." "And in me," said the Hindoo with equal fervor. The Egyptian regarded them benignantly, then went on, saying, "Religion is merely the law which binds man to his Creator. In purity it has but these elements, God, the soul, and their mutual recognition, out of which, when put in practice, spring worship, love, and reward. This law, like all others of divine origin, like that, for instance, which binds the earth to the sun, was perfected in the beginning by its author. Such, my brothers, was the religion of the first family. Such was the religion of our father Mizraim, who could not have been blind to the formula of creation, nowhere so discernible as in the first faith and the earliest worship. Perfection is God. Simplicity is perfection. The curse of curses is that men will not let truths like these alone. He stopped as if considering in what manner to continue. Many nations have loved the sweet waters of the Nile, he said next. The Ethiopian, the Palaputra, the Hebrew, the Assyrian, the Persian, the Macedonian, the Roman, of whom all except the Hebrew have at one time or another been its masters. So much coming and going of peoples corrupted the old Mizraimic faith. The Valley of Palms became a Valley of Gods. The Supreme One was divided into 8, each personating a creative principle in nature, with Amun-Re at the head, then Isis and Osiris and their circle representing water, fire, air, and other forces were invented. Still, the multiplication went on until we had another order, suggested by human qualities such as strength, knowledge, love, and the like. In all which there was the old folly, cried the Greek impulsively. Only the things out of reach remain as they came to us. The Egyptian bowed and proceeded. Yet a little further, O my brethren, a little further, before I come to myself. What we go to will seem all the holier of comparison with what is and has been. The records show that Mizraim found the Nile in possession of the Ethiopians, who were spread thence through the African desert, a people of rich, fantastic genius, wholly given to the worship of nature. The poetic Persian sacrificed to the sun as the completest image of Ormuzd, his god. The devout children of the Far East carved their deities out of wood and ivory. But the Ethiopian, without writing, without books, without mechanical faculty of any kind, quieted his soul by the worship of animals, birds, and insects, holding the cat sacred to Re, the bull to Isis, the beetle to Ptah. A long struggle against their rude faith ended in its adoption as the religion of the new empire. Then rose the mighty monuments that cumber the riverbank and the desert, obelisk, labyrinth, pyramid, and tomb of king blent with tomb of crocodile. Into such deep debasement, O brethren, the sons of the Aryan fell. Here, for the first time, the calmness of the Egyptian forsook him. Though his countenance remained impassive, his voice gave way. Do not too much despise my countrymen, he began again. They did not all forget God. I said a while ago, you may remember, that to Papri we entrusted all the secrets of our religion except one. Of that I will now tell you. We had a king once, a certain Pharaoh, who lent himself to all manner of changes and additions. To establish the new system, he strove to drive the old entirely out of mind. The Hebrews then dwelt with us as slaves. They clung to their God, and when the persecution became intolerable, they were delivered in a manner never to be forgotten. I speak from the records now. Moshe himself, a Hebrew, came to the palace and demanded permission for the slaves, then millions in number, to leave the country. The demand was in the name of the Lord God of Israel. Pharaoh refused. Hear what followed. First, all the water that in the lakes and rivers, like that in the wells and vessels, turned to blood. Yet the monarch refused. Then frogs came up and covered all the land. Still he was firm. Then Moshe threw ashes in the air, and a plague attacked the Egyptians. Next, all the cattle, except of the Hebrews, were struck dead. Locusts devoured the green things of the valley. At noon, the day was turned into darkness, so thick that lamps would not burn. Finally, in the night, all the firstborn of the Egyptians died. Not even Pharaoh's escaped. Then he yielded. But when the Hebrews were gone, he followed them with his army. At the last moment the sea was divided so that the fugitives passed it dry-shod. When the pursuers drove in after them, the waves rushed back and drowned horse, foot, charioteers, and king. You spoke of revelation, my Gaspar? The blue eyes of the Greek sparkled. I had the story from the Jew, he cried. You confirm it, O Balthazar. Yes, but through me Egypt speaks, not Moshe. I interpret the marbles. The priests of that time wrote in their way what they witnessed, and the revelation has lived. So I come to the one unrecorded secret. In my country, brethren, we have, from the day of the unfortunate Pharaoh, always had two religions, one private, the other public, one of many gods practiced by the people, the other of one God, cherished only by the priesthood. Rejoice with me, O brothers! All the trampling by the many nations, all the harrowing by kings, all the inventions of enemies, all the changes of time have been in vain. Like a seed under the mountains, waiting its hour, the glorious truth has lived, and this is its day. The wasted frame of the Hindoo trembled with delight, and the Greek cried aloud, It seems to me the very desert is singing. From a gurglet of water nearby, the Egyptian took a draught and proceeded. I was born in Alexandria, a prince and a priest, and had the education usual to my class, but very early I became discontented. Part of the faith imposed was that after death, upon the destruction of the body, the soul at once began its former progression from the lowest up to humanity, the highest and last existence, and that without reference to conduct in the mortal life. When I heard of the Persian's realm of light, his paradise across the bridge Shinavat, where only the good go, and the thought haunted me, insomuch that in the day, as in the night, I brooded over the comparative ideas, eternal transmigration, and eternal life in heaven. If, as my teacher taught, God was just, why was there no distinction between the good and the bad? At length it became clear to me, a certainty, a corollary of the law to which I reduced pure religion, that death was only the point of separation at which the wicked are left or lost, and the faithful rise to a higher life, not the nirvana of Buddha, or the negative rest of Brahma, or Melchior, not the better condition in Hades, which is all of heaven, allowed by the Olympic faith, O Gaspar, but life, life active, joyous, everlasting, life with God. The discovery led to another inquiry. Why should the truth be longer kept a secret for the selfish solace of the priesthood? The reason for the suppression was gone. Philosophy had at least brought us toleration. In Egypt, we had Rome instead of Rameses. One day, in the Bruchium, the most splendid and crowded quarter of Alexandria, I arose and preached. The East and West contributed to my audience. Students going to the library, priests from the Serapeon, idlers from the museum, patrons of the racecourse, countrymen from the Rakotis, a multitude stopped to hear me. I preached God, the soul, right and wrong, and heaven, the reward of a virtuous life. You, O Melchior, were stoned. My auditors first wondered, then laughed. I tried again. They pelted me with epigrams, covered my God with ridicule, and darkened my heaven with mockery. Not to linger needlessly, I fell before them. The Hindoo here drew a long sigh as he said, The enemy of man is man, my brother. Balthazar lapsed into silence. I gave much thought to finding the cause of my failure, and at last succeeded, he said, upon beginning again. Up the river, a day's journey from the city, there is a village of herdsmen and gardeners. I took a boat and went there. In the evening I called the people together, men and women, the poorest of the poor. I preached to them exactly as I had preached in the Bruchium. They did not laugh. Next evening I spoke again, and they believed and rejoiced and carried the news abroad. At the third meeting, a society was formed for prayer. I returned to the city then, drifting down the river under the stars which never seemed so bright and so near. I evolved this lesson. To begin a reform, go not into the place of the great and rich. Go rather to those whose cups of happiness are empty, to the poor and humble. And then I laid a plan and devoted my life. As a first step, I secured my vast property so that the income would be certain, and always at call for the relief of the suffering. From that day, O brethren, I traveled up and down the Nile in the villages and to all the tribes, preaching one God, a righteous life, and reward in heaven. I have done good. It does not become me to say how much. I also know the part of the world to be ripe for the reception of him we go to find. A flush suffused the swarthy cheek of the speaker, but he overcame the feeling and continued. The years so given, O my brothers, were troubled by one thought. When I was gone, what would become of the cause I had started? Was it to end with me? I had dreamed many times of organization as a fitting crown for my work. To hide nothing from you, I had tried to effect it and failed. Brethren, the world is now in the condition that, to restore the old Mizraimic faith, the reformer must have a more than human sanction. He must not merely come in God's name, he must have the proof subject to his world. He must demonstrate all he says, even God. So preoccupied is the mind with myths and systems, so much do false deities crowd every place, earth, air, sky. So have they become of everything a part, that return to the first religion can only be along bloody paths, through fields of persecution. That is to say, the converts must be willing to die rather than recant. And who in this age can carry the faith of men to such a point but God himself? To redeem the race, I do not mean to destroy it, to redeem the race, he must make himself once more manifest. He must come in person. Intense emotion seized the three. Are we not going to find him? Exclaimed the Greek. You understand why I failed in the attempt to organize, said the Egyptian, when the spell was past. I had not the sanction. To know what my work must be lost made me intolerably wretched. I believed in prayer, and to make my appeals pure and strong, like you, my brethren. I went out of the beaten ways. I went where man had not been, where only God was. Above the fifth cataract, above the meeting of the rivers in Sinar, up the Bahr el Abiad, into the far unknown of Africa, I went. The cataracts are the waterfalls in the Nile River, and they are also how the river is divided in the ancient world. So just no, you can't go up a waterfall, but they did have their canals that went that way. But it was had guard stations there, so they were able to defend them very well. Anyway, okay. There in the morning, a mountain blue as the sky flings a cooling shadow wide over the western desert, and with its cascades of melted snow feeds a broad lake nestling at its base on the east. The lake is the mother of the great river. That's Lake Victoria, by the way. For a year and more, the mountain gave me a home. The fruit of the palm fed my body, prayer my spirit. One night I walked in the orchard close by the little sea. The world is dying. When wilt thou come? Why may I not see the redemption, O God? So I prayed. The glassy water was sparkling with stars. One of them seemed to leave its place and rise to the surface, where it became a brilliancy burning to the eyes. Then it moved towards me and stood over my head, apparently in the hand's reach. I fell down and hid my face. A voice, not of the earth, said, Thy good works have conquered. Blessed art thou, O son of Mizraim. The redemption cometh, with two others from the remotest of the world, the remotenesses of the world. Thou shalt see the Savior and testify for him. In the morning arise and go meet him. And when ye have all come to the holy city of Jerusalem, ask of the people, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are sent to worship him. Put all thy trust in the Spirit which shall guide thee. And the light became an inward illumination not to be doubted, and has stayed with me, a governor and a guide. It led me down the river to Memphis, where I made ready for the desert. I bought my camel and came hither without rest, by way of Suez and Kuphilah, and up through the lands of Moab and Ammon. God is with us, O my brethren. He paused, and thereupon, with a prompting not their own, they all arose and looked at each other. I said there was a purpose in the particularity with which we described our peoples and their histories. So the Egyptian proceeded. He we go to find was called King of the Jews. By that name we are bidden to ask for him. But now that we have met and heard from each other, we may know him to be the Redeemer, not of the Jews alone, but of all the nations of the earth. The patriarch who survived the flood had with him 3 sons and their families, by whom the whole world was repeopled. From the old Ariana Viejo, the well-remembered region of delight in the heart of Asia, they parted. India and the Far East received the children of the first. The descendants of the youngest through the north streamed into Europe. Those of the second overflowed the deserts about the Red Sea, passing into Africa, and through most of the latter are yet dwellers in shifting tents. Some of them became builders along the Nile. By a simultaneous impulse, the 3 joined hands. Could anything be more divinely ordered? Balthazar continued. When we have found the Lord, the brothers and all the generations that have succeeded them will kneel to him in homage with us. And when we part to go our separate ways, the world will have learned a new lesson, that heaven may be won, not by the sword, not by human wisdom, but by faith, love, and good works. There was silence, broken by sighs and sanctified with tears, for the joy that filled them might not be stayed. It was the unspeakable joy of souls on the shores of the river of life, resting with the redeemed in God's presence. Presently their hands fell apart, and together they went out of the tent. The desert was still as the sky. The sun was sinking fast. The camels slept. A little while after, the tent was struck, and with the remains of the repast restored to the cot, then the friends mounted and set out single file, led by the Egyptian. Their course was due west into the chilly night. The camels swung forward in steady trot, keeping the line and the intervals so exactly that those following seemed to tread in the tracks of the leader. The riders spoke not once. By and by the moon came up, and as the 3 tall white figures sped with soundless tread through the opalescent light, they appeared like spectres flying from hateful shadows. Suddenly, in the air before them, not not farther up than the low hilltop flared a lambent flame. As they looked at it, the apparition contracted into a focus of dazzling luster. Their hearts beat fast, their souls thrilled, and they shouted as with one voice, "The star! The star! God is with us!" And I'll just show you the picture once again from yesterday. This is the picture that was described with the 3 men riding their camels and the star. All righty, so that is where we will end it today. JJ says he's got a joke. The next chapter, I just want to tell you, is chapter 6, and the title is called The Joppa Gate. The first word is in. Kimmy says she has a joke too. If y'all want to tell jokes, you're gonna have to hurry because this thing is gonna be ending. All right, here's JJ and his joke. Oh, JJ, where are you going? You going over there? Okay, here's JJ.
Hello.
Hello. Tell us a joke.
Are you joking?
Nope. I'm waiting for the joke.
Are you joking about that?
No. Okay, now it's Kimmy's turn. That was a great joke, JJ. No.
I said, are you joking? Because that was the joke.
Okay.
So for those of you who do not know, star in German is Stern. Now quit staring at it.
All right. Granny Bear said hi, JJ. She also drew this beautiful star with her emoji font that she used. All right. So,
Dad, are you angry? Are you a bird? Are you an angry bird?
all right. It is time for bed now. All right. All right, everybody. I hope that y'all have a great night. Tomorrow we're going to read about the Joppa Gate, and it's going to be great. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. So there it is. Okay. Put the kitty down. All right. God bless you guys. Have a good night. Granny Bear says hi to JJ and to Kimmy. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. We really appreciate it. And I promise the story gets going, and this is a little bit slow, but it really does get going. Whoa, ew. Okay, that's enough. All right. All right. Good night.
Bye.